We're going to begin with assist of the year. So this is the best assist by an American player in Europe this past season. The nominees are, for those of you watching us, Gio Reyna had a wonderful assist for Dortmund against Shakhtar, a back heel to Ben Sebaini. And then Antonee Robinson had one for Fulham against Liverpool at Anfield, a great run, and then he squared it for Rodrigo Muniz, who had a lovely flick. And then the third one would be Weston McKennie for Juventus against Atalanta in Serie A. A long pass to him, then he brought it down very well, and then passed it to Kalulu for a goal.
And, as we often say, if you are just listening to the pod, we appreciate that. You're not actually seeing these, but we've talked about them over the year, and you might be able to remember them, and you can certainly go and watch them later. Okay, I just want to say, in general, when I started thinking about this in an effort to give my winner, ultimately, I take into account a lot of different things, including, who the player is, where the player is playing, who they are playing against, the tournament and the moment that it is happening, obviously degree of difficulty, all that kind of stuff goes into something like this. But when you look at these assists, let's just preface this also by saying, I'm sure that there are people out there that are going to say, yeah, but you didn't include this one. You know what? Get your own awards, okay? These are the State of the Union. As Mosse said, we have people that worked very, very hard on these, but it's not all of them. There are certainly others out there, and if you want to submit them and call our hotline, you can do that. But these are the ones that we picked, and I think we did a very, very good job. I am going to go with the Reyna back heel. We were talking off air about how some of these assists are kind of the development of the play and the play in totality, not even necessarily the last kind of touch. But when it comes to a back heel, yeah, there might be other parts of the play, but ultimately the sex and the sizzle comes from the back heel. And that it comes from a player who is at a moment of, a problem moment in Gio Reyna. This is one little brief shining moment of magic and positivity, if you will, in a sea of crap that he is dealing with right now. Hopefully that changes as he goes someplace else. But I'm going to go with Gio Reyna here against Shakhtar, a nice little back here that ultimately ended in the goal.
I agree with everything you just said. That's the best assist, and it's a glimpse of what Gio's capable of, which is why U.S. fans refuse to give up on him despite what a difficult season he had.
And it comes from somebody, like you said, that we can't quit him, right? And his ability and his vision, and when he comes on the field, even with the national team, we're really at this point just hoping for a magical moment. And because he does things like this, we hope that there is more of that. And when all is said and done, one little magical moment may be what Gio Reyna offers to the national team. But one little magic moment can be the difference between bombing out of a World Cup and moving on. So here's to more of these magical moments going forward from Gio Reyna. He's a long way off, but at least he gets to celebrate with the State of the Union award.
In terms of goal of the year, we have 5 nominees. Christian Pulisic scored a wonderful goal for AC Milan in a derby against Inter, a weaving run, and then he poked home from close range. You have Cameron Carter-Vickers with a long-distance strike for Celtic against Kilmarnock. Johnny Cardoso with an acrobatic finish for Betis in a derby against Sevilla. Malik Tillman with a wonderful curling finish for PSV against Shakhtar in the Champions League. And then Timmy Weah with a long-distance strike for Juventus against Salernitana in the Coppa Italia.
And this might be the hardest one. They're all quality goals. And a lot of times when we're talking about goals of the year, the sexiness comes from the distance that they are hit. But I remember when Christian scored that goal against Inter, I just loved the way that he was ruthless and just kind of shot the gap and scored. Again, if you're watching the show, you can see a lot of these goals. Johnny taking it out of the air, long distance shots from Twellman, from Weah, and from CCV. And by the way, even people that even missed the cut, again, we talked about there are other things out there. Pulisic against Liverpool, McKennie against PSV. But I am going to go with my friend, a center back, and maybe, I'm wearing my center back heart on my sleeve here. But even if you didn't know that he was a center back, I think you could justify this. Cameron Carter-Vickers against Kilmarnock. with a goal from distance into the upper 90. I love it. And again, I know that the league he plays in and certainly the opponent here matter, but still, I don't think anybody is saving that. The power that he generated, the distance that it went, he gets my vote for goal of the year.
I have railed against this in the past. I think there's an inherent bias towards long distance strikes when it comes to goal of the year
long
awards.
distance strikes?
I'm sorry, a bias in favor
Okay,
of
got it,
long distance strikes when it comes to these awards. You see it with that AT&T goal of the week that they give out in MLS. You saw it here at Fox Sports, frankly. We employed a kid years ago named Justin Keene, who was in charge of putting together all our goal lists, and it was all filled with long-distance strikes. And it particularly bothers me when it comes from a player like Carter Vickers, who's not used to scoring goals, so you know it's a fluke. I mean, he just closed his eyes and took a shot. If he had to recreate that 20 other times, he wouldn't be able to do it. So I would actually, you could make a case for Tillman and Weah because those are at least players that are used to putting the ball in the back of the net. So I think it's less fluky what they pulled off. But I would actually go with Christian Pulisic to do it for Milan against Inter, a team that's about to play in the Champions League final in a derby at a packed San Siro, weaving through all these defenders like he did. That's my favorite goal of the bunch.
David Mosse, I don't think that anybody, including me, would ever call you dumb. But that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard you say.
Really?
Okay, this is ridiculous. Because somebody doesn't do it on a continual basis, or you have come to the conclusion that they can't do it on a continual basis. Somehow they get marked down for that in your mind.
Correct. When it's a center back just taking a shot from long distance and it happens to find the back of the net, there's an element of luck to that versus the Pulisic goal, which is a player reflecting this great skill that he had.
Look, we're going to talk a little bit about music later on in the show, okay? When somebody has a one-hit wonder type of situation here, you don't say that they're not good songwriter. It's a good moment, and these are moments. Goals of the year, by definition, are the goal. They are a moment. You could have sucked the rest of the season. You could have done nothing the rest of the season or the rest of your life or your rest of your career. I can't believe you're marking down players because they don't normally do it. If anything, that they rose to the occasion, that they did something that the great David Mosse didn't believe they could do, that should be to their benefit. So
is there a little bit of a center back bias here with you?
Well, I didn't want to say that, but that you picked out the center back to kind of crap on here. Oh, and then when Weah does it, or Tillman does it, or McKennie does it, that's what we expect of them, and it's so much better. No, it's a warped way of thinking of things, and I don't buy it. I love that you disagree. I take that back. You're not, while this is dumb, and I consider it dumb, you are definitely not dumb, and I shouldn't have ever associate anything dumb with you, but you're bordering on dumb right now. You're dumb adjacent right now.
All right, so the next category is defender/goalkeeper of the year. And it's really defender because, let's be honest, there's no goalkeeper that even compares with guys like Jedi Robinson and Chris Richards did this season. We know Jedi, terrific season for Fulham, really established himself as one of the best left backs in the Premier League. Chris Richards helped Crystal Palace win the FA Cup. You also have a guy like Carter Vickers who just scored your goal of the year and helped Celtic win the Scottish League, get to the knockout stage of the Champions League, and gave Bayern Munich all they could handle in a Champions League tie. So which way do you go here?
So unlike a moment, which is the assist of the year or a goal of the year, the defender of the year is in totality, right? And so while I wanted to anoint Chris Richards because I think that he has stepped it up this year, and obviously that is evident in his club performance, and congratulations to him, he still doesn't get by Jedi Robinson in terms of doing it on both fronts, and doing it throughout the season for club and country. So I am still going to go, and look, there's nothing wrong with going with Jedi Robinson. He's one of the best left backs in the world and is in a continual way being looked at as a possible move to even bigger and better, and yet he just constantly does it. Gets forward, gets back, does incredible things, again, for club and country. So I am, just by a smidge, I am going to give it to Jedi Robinson, but Chris Richards had a wonderful year and certainly deserves to be there. Cameron Carter Vickers, obviously, we just talked about him scoring the goal. Also had a good year, but I do think that the quality of competition in this case, in my mind, matters. And I think Jedi Robinson still far and away is the most consistent. And in that consistency, the level of his play is still the highest of anybody there.
I agree. Also, Mark McKenzie had a good season for Toulouse, Joe Scally with Gladbach, but Jedi Robinson is the pick for me as well. The next category is midfielder slash winger. We combine these two because you have guys like Pulisic, Tillman,
Yeah.
Brendan Aronson, even Gio Reyna. It's a bit of a gray area whether they're midfielders or forwards. So we'll lump them all together. So you've got those guys I just mentioned. Also guys like Tyler Adams, Johnny Cardoso, Weston McKennie. So really the three we've picked out are Pulisic, Malik Tillman, and Johnny Cardoso. Which way do you go?
I went right to Christian Pulisic. I think that is a fair choice, and I think it is the right choice here. Johnny is doing great, but he's kind of like a Chris Richards in that, yeah, I love the way it's going, and I love that it continues to get better and better and better, and now I want to see him doing it for both club and country. Malik Tillman, again, quality of competition over there, playing for a team that is one of the best two teams over there, and therefore you're going to get a lot of opportunity, but you still got to score the goals, and he certainly did. So he's there, but I still think Christian Pulisic put enough distance and a good chunk of distance between him and the rest that I would be hard-pressed to find anybody out there, I think, that would disagree with this decision.
I agree with you. I go Pulisic as well. Although I do want to note, we're taping this on Wednesday afternoon. Johnny Cardoso about to play in a European final. Yep. He's in the starting lineup for Betis in the Conference League final against Chelsea. If he scores a hat trick today, we reserve the right to go back and change this. But no, I'm joking.
Pulisic. What's he playing in? What's it called?
The Conference League.
That's the third one? Okay.
So Pulisic is the pick there. Next up would be Striker of the Year. The nominees, Ricardo Pepi, Josh Sargent, and Haji Wright. It's really between Pepi and Sargent. We know Pepi, very good the first part of the year, then missed the back end due to injury. Sargent was the reverse. He missed the first part of the year due to injury, then very good the second half of the season. The numbers very similar between the two. Pepi with 17 goals in all competitions, Sargent with 15. Which way do you go?
I went back and forth with this, but ultimately I came out on Josh Sargent. And for a number of different reasons, and not the least of which is, again, consistency. Obviously, the number of goals he scored. You mentioned Ricardo Pepi with 17, Josh Sargent with 15. Also, and I think I've said this before on the pod, staying healthy is a skill, and it is a valuable skill. And so, the fact that Ricardo Pepi was not able to do it, and again, I'm not blaming them in that sense. But it does resonate with me. And Josh Sargent certainly had injuries through the year. But 33 appearances, 15 goals. And I know Ricardo Pepi had 29 appearances and his 17 goals, all comps. But I'm going to stick with Josh Sargent. But I would certainly be happy with Ricardo Pepi. Haji, I don't think, is in the conversation with his 12 goals. So I'm going to go with Josh Sargent. And finally, I'll say this, why I ultimately went with him. If you are Ricardo Pepi and you are playing for PSV, in the same way I was talking about Malik Tillman, you're playing for, again, one of the top teams in the league. In this case, you won the league, which means you're going to get so many more opportunities. When you're talking about Josh Sargent playing for Norwich, scoring 15 goals for a mid-level team, that to me is more impressive that you were able to do it. If there was a relegation fighting team that had a 20-goal scorer, you'd say, damn, that's pretty incredible for someone to do that. And so that's where I come out when it comes to Josh Sargent.
I probably should let this go, but Pepi, it's actually 17 in 28 games. I pointed out to Sean Sullivan before we started taping that he had erroneously counted an under-21 game that Pepi played. He detracted the goal. He forgot to subtract the games played, too. So it's 17 and 28.
You just like pointing out his mistakes, is what you're saying. Okay.
I went Pepi, but I have to say, you made a very solid argument for Sargent. You really could go either way here. I just looked at the numbers. Pepi, more goals, a better goals per game ratio, better minutes per goal ratio. And I actually went the other way. The fact that Pepe did it for a team that won the Dutch League and got to the knockout stages of the Champions League had more weight for me than doing it for a mid-table championship team. But to your point, you could actually argue that the other way and make that a feather in Sargent's cap. So you could go either way.
And I know to an extent I'm contradicting myself because that logic that I just used, someone could turn around and say, well, why did you pick CCV for the goal of the year? Because he's playing in a league where he's one of the good teams, although also playing in a league where Kilmarnock, with all due respect, and maybe the goalkeeping isn't as good. So I recognize that you can and you should disagree with me when it comes to some of my hypocrisy, if you will, in terms of my picks here.
And then player of the season, the nominees we picked, Christian Pulisic, Antonee Robinson, and Malik Tillman. I think it's really between the first two, Pulisic and Jedi Robinson. Which way do you go?
I go with Christian Pulisic, and I think most people would agree with me. Wonderful year for AC Milan. Oh, and by the way, a healthy year for him, and the consistency that he showed, the goals that he scored. We've already talked about the quality of some of those goals and what he did. And in a year when AC Milan was mediocre and at times not good, certainly relative to what we expect from them, he was a shining star. And credit to him for continuing to score goals and to be involved. 12 assists too, so it wasn't just all goals, but his value was on display each and every time that he was on the field. So yeah, I'm going to go with U.S. Men's National Team Abroad Player of the Season for the State of the Union. I'm going to give my vote to Christian Pulisic.
I agree with you. It's close. Jedi Robinson was terrific, but I would lean Pulisic for all the reasons you mentioned. And then that leads us to picking USMNT Abroad Best 11 for this past season. We went with a 4-3-3. So this is your team. I have a couple of disagreements, but you could take us through it.
Well, can I just also say, what I hate is when somebody says, okay, for example, I picked Christian Pulisic as my player of the season, and then they don't include them on the best 11. It drives me crazy when people.
We've seen this with UEFA and their end of season awards. They'll pick somebody as their goalkeeper of the year, and then he won't be the starting goalkeeper in their best 11.
Just trying to get as many of your people in there as possible. I get it. So we already talked about the lack of quantity and quality when it comes to goalkeepers, but we're going to go with Horvath there. My backline, I don't think you'll disagree with a lot, except I did put Richie Ledesma on the right-hand side. As we know, Serginho Dest out most of this year with that long-term injury and most of this season. Midfield, Tyler Adams, Johnny, that we talked about, and Weston McKennie. Certainly there are others that could go in there. And then up top, I have Malik Tillman, Josh Sargent, and Christian Pulisic. So missing the cut would be your friend Ricardo Pepi, Haji Wright. But I know you probably have a couple of things that you disagree with here.
And by the way, I said 4-3-3. For those of you watching us, the way we drew it up, McKennie's pushed high enough that you could call that a 4-2-3-1. The only minor disagreements, I would probably lean Joe Scally at right back instead of Ledesma. 30 starts for Gladbach, played pretty well. And then we just talked about it. Since I gave Pepe the striker of the year over Sargent, it stands to reason that I would put him as my striker, but as we just discussed, it's very close. You could go either way on those.
Yeah, and I would absolutely agree. With Scally, I'd have no problem with that, but gave Ledesma a little bit of love.
And boy, slim pickings in goal. Huh? I mean, Matt Turner won the FA Cup. He played in some of the earlier rounds, but didn't play much beyond that. Horvath got lucky. There was an injury that opened the door for him to play for Cardiff the last stretch of the season. And he played pretty well. So we give it to him. But boy, that is a concern that you don't have when you think about years past, Tim Howard, Casey Keller, Brad Friedel, the fact that you don't have an American really shining the highest level in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, this is a longer conversation, but I've already had it now with some people in that our zeal to evolve and to progress, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and that we are finding ourselves here on Wednesday, May 28th in 2025, my kingdom for a goalkeeper. That's crazy. I don't think anybody of us old people that were around when we were cranking out goalkeepers thought that was going to be a problem in the future. But anyway, if you agree or disagree with what we said, certainly let us know. You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.